Hey, it's Joey Balladonna here from Anthrax, and this is SAGAS.
Well,
look, this is a big one.
I didn't break out and join the podcast today.
It is now time for Devil's Advocate. Same time, same place, awesome.
What's going on, everybody? This is Corbin, the Serpentine Skipwith.
And this is Ren, the Berserker Marabou. And this is...
SAGAS.
SAGAS, we're back.
Return of the King Part 2.
Yeah.
So thank you all for sticking with me this past, month? 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't like recording by myself. That's why I went to extra lengths to get guests. And I'm pretty happy with who I pulled out. I think by the time you were gone, it was that local band. Apologies, I forgot your guys' name, but I will link you below. Steve Hughes and Cannibal Corpse. I think they were the three I had. So anyway, The ones to be up now, the Cannibal Corpse, should be out already. So enjoy that while it's on. And before we continue this album about this review about Judas Priest, I want to give a shout out to Morgrot. So it's a bit hard to see my green screen, but Morgrot is a publication by John Sorrell from America. He's a very creative guy, very talented guy. I talk to him quite often because he's a big wrestling fan. So I talk to him quite often. And yeah, he has a knack for making, he has a knack for metal, and he actually makes these physical issues called Morgrot. And I think he makes them around every month. He gets different bands, has different reviewers write for him to help him out. I'm one of those reviewers. I'll be doing the issues going forward. And for this issue, we actually collaborated with SAGAS. As you can see, our logo, custom logo down below. And now we are collaborating with them permanently. So from every issue going forward, Morgrot will have the SAGAS logo, which is very, very cool. And yeah, so go check him out. John Sorrell. I'll put while I'm doing the editing, I'll put in the link on the screen so you guys can see what to type in when you go to do it. Please go check them out. Afford his issues if you can. They're really good. They have stuff like artwork. Oh, stupid green screen. It
disappeared.
It has my green screen's fucking up, but it has artwork. I'll post photos on Facebook soon so you can see what it is. It's got interviews by certain artists, and it has reviews. As I said, I do a few. And he also has this new thing, which I don't have on me. It's in my room. But he actually started this thing called serial killer cards for an upcoming board game. And I got Charles Manson. That was my first card. So I don't have it on me, but it has like his stats, what he did. It's pretty cool for a serial killer like metal vibe. So that's also cool. And yeah, so a lot of cool stuff to come with the magazine. They're all amazingly crafted, really, really good quality. So yeah, go get yours today. And as I said, I'll put the link at the top on the screen for the segment so you can see where to go. And yeah, Morgrot forever. Morgrot cross SAGAS starting 2023. What a cool way to start.
Awesome.
Cool. So now that that's done, this week we'll be talking about the Judas Priest album, Firepower, that was released in 2018. Yeah. So why don't you give us a start? Wait, actually, before I say that, have you heard this album prior to this?
No. I've always been a big fan of Priest, but I didn't get a chance to listen to this album. And I tell you what, man, this is one of my favorite albums that I've listened to in the past few years. So great show.
Nah, this is I'll be honest, I'm on the complete opposite. I knew of them, but I never listened to them growing up. For me, they were one of those bands that you admire, you respect, but you just I guess you didn't have time because you can't go through every band ever. There's not enough time. So for me, I guess Priest was one of those bands that just fell out of my radar when I was getting into metal heavily as a teenager. But I remember watching a review of this album by another guy. He did a video review and he said how amazing this album was. So I went to check it out, and obviously the rest is history. But yeah, no, for me, considering this is the only album of Judas Priest I've listened to, it is completely, it is unreal. And, you know, it's interesting because I feel bad, you know, when there's such a big monolithic point in an album that stands out in all the best ways possible, I feel kind of bad because then it feels like when I'm doing interviews or podcasts about certain albums, I feel like, you know, the band won't get enough credit because this part is so good, or this won't get enough credit because this. And I feel like, unfortunately, I won't be able to help myself in this episode because the one thing that just stands out for all the best ways possible is Rob Halford's voice. Considering, and for one reason only, I mean, not just because he's an amazing singer, but because of his age. In this album, he would have been in his early 60s or late 50s. One of those two. And the fact, he sounds like he's in his 30s. He sounds like he hasn't skipped a beat from what I've heard from other albums. And it's just insane that, because, you know, it's interesting because whenever I think about this album, I think about the unwritten, unspoken longevity game in metal. Because, you know, every band in their prime has their prime. They sound great. But as time goes on, you start to notice which bands start to fall off because obviously age gets to them, and which bands rise to the top somehow and sound crisp, you know. I feel like Iron Maiden still sounds pretty good considering. I feel like there were certain bands, but then Judas Priest comes along and Rob Halford just knocked everyone out the water with how good he sounds all these years later. And yeah, I feel bad because I feel like I'll be harping on his vocals a lot this album, but it's going to be hard not to do because of just how immaculate he sounds considering how old he really is.
Yeah. I mean, like, the very first thing you need to talk about when you talk about Judas Priest is Rob Halford. Rob Halford, not only is he like one of the most iconic men in metal of all time, he stayed super humble all these years, and now I think he's in his 70s now, bro. So like, I just, like, you see them on stage now, and obviously, sadly, Glenn the guitar player, not Glenn, yeah, Glenn, I was right. Never doubt yourself, kids. Glenn, Parkinson's disease he has, so I think he's out of the touring side of things. But you could see him right up to the end playing the shows, and he you know, he was very still compared to his live shows when he was younger. But it just goes to show that they're doing it for the right reasons right till the very end. But you see Rob Halford now, he's still coming out on stage on his motorbike in his 70s. Like, it's absolutely badass. Like, you know, sitting on his motorbike singing his first, you know, song of the set, and you know, that man lives, breathes, and just, like, you know, is the essence of what is metal. Metal minions, or whatever they call their fans. They're the most loyal fans ever. Like, you know, you have like, these boys they're from Birmingham, you know, which is the same place as Sabbath, you know. So like, they were just after Sabbath. They weren't long after them, and they really pushed the envelope out when British Steel came out. For me, though, that's when it really kicked off. I can't remember. I think that was in 1980, and that was like Breaking the Law and all that kind of stuff. Like, one of the most iconic songs, which is really surprising because it's really interesting because Rob's now become this very, you know, centered, grounded individual, and he would be the last person to break the law now. It's really funny. So he's gone from like this, like, you know, crazy wildcat to like just like Mr. Cool, Mr. Chill, and Mr. Appreciation. Like, he's so appreciative of all of his fans and everything. And sure, this album, when I looked into it, was #1 in America in the album charts, and I think pretty high on the Billboard charts as well. And for a band in their you know, late 60s, 70s that have been doing it for 50 years, and they're able to get into the charts in America like that, it's outrageous. That's outrageous.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, Rob Halford's 71 now. So
nice. Yeah.
He would be in his late 60s when he made that album.
Yeah.
But
that's unreal.
It's just like, yeah, it's unreal. And, you know, talking about this album, you know, some albums just have that, just know when they have the perfect intro track. Firepower just fucking.
Nice.
It's the title track of the album too. But Firepower is just like fire. It's just like pure adrenaline in your face, and it's funny because apparently, I forgot who it was. Someone in the band said that Firepower is probably their fastest tempo song they've ever done in Judas Priest, which is interesting when you think about that. But it's the perfect intro song. And then, like I said, as soon as you hear Rob's voice, you're like, holy shit, is this the same guy? Like, is this like, does he not age? Maybe he does, but his voice doesn't. Like, his voice just sounds the same. And I just can't imagine. I can't imagine it, but it's a kick-ass intro. But one thing I also love in the second track, Lightning Strike, which is again a perfect song. The first lyrics make me laugh so much, laugh in a badass way. It's like it was like I killed a demon, ripped his skin off his face. I'm like, damn, that's like imagine an old Rob Halford just like ripping ripping a demon's face off. Like that's pretty badass. It's just like with this album,
look like ripping his face off.
Yeah, like the fucking, and like it's funny because you can just imagine, like a badass leather gay Rob Halford just like ripping his face off. Like, come over here. It's just the funniest thing. But no, I think this album does a lot of things right, obviously, and one of the things is the lyrics are not too complex that it's confusing, because there are some lyricists out there like Tool or not Tool, Michael, whatever his name is, Corey Taylor, who have cryptic lyrics and it's like hard to decipher. But this one, it's not cryptic, but it's fun. It's in your face, something to sing along to, easy lyrics, and it gives you like that potent adrenaline rush that comes with not just the lyrics, but the production, the singing, it's just like everything just hits on a T with this album.
Yeah, man. Like, I won't even hit on the production just yet because the production is just outrageous. But I need to talk more about his actual vocals. Like, oh my God, like how they could not dwindle in any way over the years. And he's going hell for leather. All these years, man, like he's just absolutely killing it, and he's a testament to vocalists that want to aspire to be heavy metal vocalists, because he paved the way for all of us a long time ago, and he's still kicking it. Like, but as well as that, I think it's a really good addition to the band, bringing in Richie Faulkner. I know it was 2011, but it was only the last couple of albums he was working on. And I love his guitar playing, his approach to writing, and it's just badass, absolutely badass. He worked on an album with Christopher Reeves. Was it Christopher? Yeah, Christopher Reeves. Do you know the actor from Lord of the Rings, the White Wizard? He released a couple of metal albums. Like, it was really sick. I was actually going to say we should do one of them on the podcast, but yeah, I just remember that's where I first heard about Richie. His riffs and stuff on that very unusual album or albums. But he replaced KK Downing, and KK was one of the original members, and when he left, it was like they didn't actually tell us exactly what it was, but he said that there's 21 reasons why I had to leave the band. And I was like, oh man, like that's knowing how the rest of the band operates, I was very surprised and very disappointed and all that anyway. But remember, I'd say about 2 or 3 times I've mentioned the Rockstar movie in on the podcast. I don't know why, everything just seems to come back to it that we chat about. But they say that it was based on Tim the Ripper that replaced Rob Halford for a few years, and the whole story of like, hey kid, you can sing my stuff, come on stage, and the real singer runs off. And I kind of like that idea of it was based on him. And like Tim Ripper Owens done really well in that band, replacing somebody so iconic. But when Rob came back, it was just like, yes, that's what it's meant to be. Like, coming out on a motorbike on stage with like a leather whip in his mouth. Did you ever see him? He has like a leather whip in his mouth. Oh man, he's just an absolute king, with exceptional range. That's the other thing. Like it's an iconic voice that has this really, distinctive tone, but then it's serious technicality. Like he's well able to do his low ends, and he rips up into the falsetto fucking fry stuff and stuff that you can't train to do it, like, but he just does it. It's a gift. He's just a gifted human being. So yeah, man, I was delighted when you said you want to talk about these, because I was like, oh no, this is going to be a ramble episode. I'm going to end up rambling about random shit that I came across over the years. But no, interesting enough, you said about Firepower being such a fast tempo song. I actually had a conversation with Terence. Anybody who doesn't know, Terence is the drummer in the Berserkers. And he was like, oh, there's a track off... I was talking about how fast the song was, funny enough. And he goes, yeah, no, there's a track off Tales of Ruin. Which song did he say it was? I can't remember now. One of our songs anyway. He goes, yeah, no, that's the same tempo as that, like 120 beats or something like that. And I was like, no way, is it, class?
Fucking hell. Good old Murderface Terrence. But yeah, no, like, it's just funny. I just imagine, like, when God was creating everyone and all the humans, it's like he's like, oh, this badass guy, we're gonna give him the voice of an angel. We're gonna make him the most celebrated guy in metal. And then like God like slips and accidentally makes him gay. It's like, fuck. Like, no.
Yeah, man. Just
makes him sassy as fuck.
Yeah.
But yeah, nah, this album is just like, it's also interesting because another thing we haven't touched on. I mean, obviously, you were probably going to touch on it later, but this is the first album since 1988 to have produced by Tom Allom. Mm-hmm. So isn't that crazy? Like after all that time, he's like, "Look, we need you back."
Yeah.
And another interesting thing to kind of steal your little bit, but the album cover is very interesting. It's like, I've got it in front of me now. It's like in this hyperspeed. It's like in this Flash, like the character Flash. It's like in his red beams, and it's like disoriented, broken pieces. It looks like it's just sick. It's such an intriguing album cover.
Yeah, man,
it's epic, and it's interesting because like one thing I found funny is like you got these badass tracks all the way from all the way from 1, 2, 3, 4, and then around track 7, Guardians, it's just like low key instrumental. It's like, all right, like I guess it's like a kind of a slow point, and then starts all the way back again. Like, and also another like the song "C for Red." It's such a perfect ending to the album. It's just like it has this heavy but melodic but sensual type of track. Like it's not over the top like a lot of bands can do for their outro, but it just hits. To me, it hits the right spot. It's just the right amount of everything. Just the right amount of heavy, just the right amount of production, just the right amount of vocal. Like it's just everything comes together in just the right amount. I don't think it's too little, but I don't think it's too high either. It's just the perfect way to like kind of end the album off in a perfect tempo, in a perfect flow, I think. So I remember listening to that track and I'm like, cool, I'm happy that this is the last track, So no, they just did a lot of things right.
Yeah, that See You Red song, they I seen an interview and they were chatting about that, and they were like, even though it's a nice piano-y type song, it's still heavy metal. And I thought that was so cool. It's like they are so like adamant that they are just heavy metal, and that's all it is, no matter what they play or what instruments they use. If it's a beautiful piano piece, it's heavy metal because it's Judas Priest. Like, I love that attitude is just so cool, and I think that's what has them where they are now. Like they didn't deviate in their sound at all over the years, and I think that's what it kind of, it's like a full circle of like working with Tom on the old school albums and then bringing them back now. But also it was a co-produced album, and they had Andy Sneap, and Andy Sneap ended up going on tour with them in recent years because Glenn couldn't do it. He was kind of backing Glenn. It was this really sweet approach to playing shows because Glenn was obviously such a big figure in the band, but still is, off stage. But Andy would be in the background, rocking out in the background, but like way at the back, and leaving Glenn at the front to do his thing. So it was like a slow process for him to eventually step into that role. But they got him to work on this record as well, production and engineering and stuff. He also mixed and mastered in a place called Backstage Studios in Derbyshire. So it was, it was all English band, English studio. But he's worked with, he's a great engineer in his own right, great producer in his own right. He's worked with like Killswitch Engage and a lot of more modern metal bands. So that's where I think this album, they took a risk. When you put too many chefs, too many producers in together, it can go to shit. Or I can make something absolutely magical. And that's what I did here. This actually, I think, is the best sounding Priest album, which I kind of hesitated there because it's kind of blasphemy in a way. You can't, there's all the iconic albums, British Steel and whatnot. You can't really, some people are, purists or whatever. But I think that it was a perfect combination getting the two of these producers, real old school and, more recent old school, if you will. Like, he's not like super modern, but he's worked with a lot of the modern-esque metal bands. So I think that was the most perfect mix to get this album to compete, not only be released and be appreciated by their fans, but to compete in like the real music world in general, like to be on the Billboard chart. I think like it was like number 5. I could be wrong there, but that's pretty high. There was like hip hop and rap artists and stuff, yourself, the way they're pushed out, into the masses. And the fact that they got up that high, I think, I don't have the figure here now. I saw the word Billboard on my sheet. I thought I had it. I don't have it. But I know they got to the hard rock charts at number 1. And in the UK, it was the same. And I think Australia was pretty close to number 1. I don't know where my notes are on that, but they pretty much got number 1 in a maybe 10 countries. Like, so, there's in their 70s and they're competing with all these bands that are like, just current and stuff. It's absolutely unbelievable. Like, unbelievable. Man, the boys. Birmingham.
Something you said made me think about, like, because saying how in the interview, even though Sea of Red is a slower song, it's still heavy metal. Like, it's just meant like it's funny to me thinking that like that probably Rob Halford would be the first person to be like, no, this is still heavy metal. We're not faggots. This is heavy metal. Like, Rob Halford would be the last person you'd think to have that mentality, but he probably is like that. He's like, we ain't no pussies, we ain't no faggots. This is heavy metal. Like, and to hear that from like Rob Halford, that'll be fucking iconic. I'm gay. I'm not a faggot. No. So it's interesting because in 2019, Metal Storm Awards won them. They won the Metal Storm Awards for the biggest surprise of that year. Fair enough.
Yeah, right.
And then Planet Rock Awards, same year. They won in the best British album category. So, the accolades so far: top 25 metal albums of the 2010s, the 200 best of the 2010s, and they were ranked 180. The 50 best metal albums of the 2010s, 11. The 50 best rock albums of the 2010s, 10. The 66 best metal albums of the decade, 18. The 25 best metal albums of 2010 to 2019, 13th. And 25 best albums of 2010s, 6th. So it's pretty insane how this album only came out, 2018, and it's already on these charts. Like, and it came out so much later that year. it's just like, it's insane. Like, they got so many accolades, so many awards. Well, 2 awards, but so many rankings, and it came out so recently. It's just like, and like you said, to do that when they all really should be in retirement homes by now. But the fact that they're like out there on stage riding motorbikes, being badass, and like, it's just like, it's an amazing kind of like comeback story. Even though they have been making albums steadily up until this point, but to them, because normally it's not that common, at least not to me, for an artist to come out with their best stuff or some of their best stuff later in their career. Like, their career is spanning 30 plus years, and for them to come out this far in is just like amazing. But I'm gonna throw in, because we're talking about later years and good albums, I'm gonna throw out, because you talked about it, you were hesitant to say what you said before because it was a controversial opinion. Well, my controversial opinion, and it's not that I've been afraid to say this, I've just forgotten about it, but it made me remember that as much as I might get shitted on for this, Guns N' Roses' Chinese Democracy was a good album. Was it their best album? No. But I think it was a pretty good album for their later years, considering how fucked up they all are now. Like, they're not cohesive. But that's obviously, we'll talk about them one day. But yeah, Chinese Democracy, love that album. I actually thought it was a pretty good album. Obviously not like Firepower, but still, good album nonetheless. But yeah, Firepower is insane. Like, they haven't released one yet since. So it's been 5 years. 5 years since. Hopefully we'll get another one. But I mean, it's insane. They're in their 70s. Like, if it's like, how many albums do it? I mean, it's a sad thing to think about. But it's like, how many albums do Judas Priest have left, considering their age? But I mean, with a voice like this, I mean, somehow his voice hasn't aged. So so fuck it. If he can just record singing in the chair, I'm sure metal fans will be the better for it.
Yeah, he'd be recording, singing on a chair. All right, but be chair on a motorbike. He'd be sitting there in his chopper. Oh man, like for the man's bravery is another thing I want to point out. Like, for him to come out in this hard man metal scene as like this, a gay icon. It's back then it just shows, like, you're talking 1969 they came out, or not came out, but the band formed, and like, it's just a whole other world. Like, all that kind of stuff is, it's just it's mind-boggling to think of the absolute bravery for him to do what he's done, and still to this day, it's absolutely unbelievable. But they released that album, Nostradamus, and it was, to me at that time, their biggest sounding album. I was like, when you told me about this one, I was like, I really hope it's on that kind of lines. Redeemer of Souls was wicked as well, like, but Nostradamus pegged it a little bit for me. And then this came out, and it blew all them away. Like, it was brilliant. I mean, Painkiller being one of the most iconic albums that they had as well. And like I said, British Steel, mentioned that a few times. The Screaming for Vengeance as well. Myself and Terrence were chatting about Screaming for Vengeance the other day. It's just an amazing album. So, if you've never listened, talking to the audience here, if you've never listened to Judas Priest, just do it. Do it. It's like a gift to yourself. There's so much amazing. And the thing about Judas Priest is, when you listen to their songs, you think, they're a heavy metal band. It's going to be straight up. And I think you were chatting to somebody in one of the interviews recently, and you were talking about like meat and potatoes. That's your phrase about, like, bands that Judas Priest don't do that. Like, there's so much. You never know what to expect. They can throw a little curveball in the middle of a track, and you're like, oh wow, like really intricate, spontaneous sounds. They're just they've really, they've never let up on their creativity, and it's mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing. So, Birmingham.
Before we get on to the next segment, it's brave of him in that time period. But remember, he said he was trying to hide it, which
he did. Yeah, you were telling me that. Yeah,
that's I don't know how he thought that, but well, yeah, it's funny to think about.
It is funny. You didn't hide it very well.
Sorry, Rob. So before we go on to our Devil's Advocate, what are your sponsors or shout outs for today?
Sponsors and shout outs today is the old lovely, well, not old. They're a relatively fresh company. I wouldn't call them old. It's Gold Strings. The best guitar strings you can get. And all those guitars behind you on the wall there, they all have skull strings, I'm sure.
Oh,
they're Drop Your Sound. There is skull strings. They are designed and catered especially for heavy metal musicians. So if you're looking to detune, or even if you're not, if you just want a solid set of strings, skull strings. And if you want to get my strings, they're available on the website, and so are Cass's. They're probably over there somewhere, but he's got a lovely new set. I think he's updated his gauge, so he's very into his details. Like I went straight away from my 10 to 48 guitar strings, but he's messing around with his and he's getting all technical on them and stuff. So check out Michael Casserly.
Nice.
Skull strings.
Nice. Well, for my one, I'm going to have to quickly take off the green screen because it fucks it up. This is the real set. Oh my god. So I want to talk about
behind the curtain.
Viking Trinkets. So they have sent me another, and they sent you a freebie as well. The bracelet thing, but they sent me a very cool serpent bracelet. I asked for it because serpent tongue and all. It's a very cool steel silver bracelet. It has a serpent tongue head, which connects to the bracelet like that. So it's very cool. It's nice and long. So it fits right in front of my Apple Watch. So that's good. They also have these amazing, which we both have. I think you still have to. Yeah, the Fenrir edition with the two heads. Yep, two wolf heads and the amazing hammer. Yeah, it's very practical. I wear it to work every day. Wear it in the shower. Wear it to sleep. And you have your beaded one.
Lava beads. Yeah. Anyway,
yeah, they make such quality products. I love them. I'm so happy because I collaborate with them. Please, I'll put it in as well. I may as well put it on the title where to go for them and put in the promo code SMP
10.
Yeah, SMP 10 for 10% off, and go support them. They are amazing. Now, real quick, I got to put my thing back on. I don't like having no background. Where is it?
There we are. Back in the room.
All right, back. So, you know what time it is, Rim. We haven't done it in a while.
You know what time it is. Actually, before we go, see your bracelet is this guy on my hand, Jormungandr. So anybody's into Norse mythology, Jormungandr is the Midgard serpent.
Oh yeah, actually, before we continue, yeah. I've come to find out, thanks to playing God of War, Odin is a dick. Thor is kind of okay. The fucking guy that can see the future is a dick. There's a lot of Henmar. I am very biased now towards Norse mythology.
Yeah. Well, do you know what's interesting about it is, like, you know, my first protocol is to defend Odin and go, no, he's not a dick, he's the best, because you know he's my god. But you know, that's the interesting thing about the Norse gods. You know, they're not perfect. They've done dick moves over the years. You know, so even they'd admit that.
Mafia god Odin. Scarface
Odin. Odin. Oh, hey, oh, Logan, oh, fatherly us. I still haven't got my singing voice back. I don't know if anybody knows, but I've been 2 weeks and I haven't been able to speak. So that's the closest thing I've done to singing for about 2.5 weeks, or maybe more, actually. But
you should make a song called Mafia Odin.
Mafia Odin, yeah. The Mafia Odin song.
That'll be sick. Mafia Odin. All right.
Mafia Odin. All right, so
Take it away, Ren.
so this is the Devil's Advocate. The Devil's Advocate. Rob Halford.
All hail Mafia Odin.
All hail the beast. Oh, I just wrecked my camera. Uh-oh. Too much metal going on here. Ow! That's my new stage prop. Hang on, let me fix my camera. I got a bit overzealous there. Oh my god. This is like when you're on stage and your amp dies or something, you're like, oh fuck. Show's been ruined.
How could you? All right. So I'll start as I always somehow do. I'll start with the worst track to me, and this thing it's very nitpicky at this point because I love all these tracks, and I would have chosen Guardians, but I made a promise ages ago that I wouldn't choose the shortest track. I wouldn't choose the interludes anymore. So
yeah. Because
of that, the next track will be track 9, Flamethrower. Only reason your camera. Wow. Ruining the podcast run.
That's what happens when you buy new stuff. It doesn't work. Okay, continue.
I'll just edit out those.
I'll go now.
Flamethrower. So the only thing I didn't like about that track, and this is nitpicking, but it's the way he says, the flamethrower part. I don't know, just the vocals are a bit, considering the rest of the album, I mean, a bit weird. And like I said, I had to nitpick. So I was thinking about what track kind of got to me the least. And Flamethrower was my choice. Still an amazing track. It wasn't for that little bit. My favorite track has to be none other than Firepower. Firepower is an amazing, perfect intro. It's badass. It's kick-ass. Apparently one of their fastest tracks. So there you go. Everything about it is just amazing. And to hear those, it's like when you listen to that track and then you hear Rob's somehow unaged voice at the first track. It's just like, it's everything you want to start this amazing comeback album. So those are my two choices.
Yeah, man. I like, when I get an album like this handed to me, it's so hard to pick a bad song. There is no bad songs in this album. Like even Guardians would have been one of my favorites musically. I'm gonna go for, and this is totally not even warranted in any way, is Lone Wolf, and it's an absolutely killer song. It sounds like a Zakk Wylde song in its entirety, which it's funny because Zakk Wylde was in that movie Rockstar as well. Like, so it's all coming back. It's all coming back. So swiftly moving on to my favorite song. I mean, Firepower, straight away you hear the serious production of this album, and you're just like, oh yeah. It's like, it's that new wave of British heavy metal, like, waving that flag still to this day. It's phenomenal. And one of my favorite things in music in general is, I'm very rhythmic based, and when I listen and when I write, and Lightning the Strike had that galloping, really cool galloping, rhythm to it, which almost did it for me. But then I found another really cool song on the album, Never the Heroes, and that was amazing. There's a 40-second intro that's absolutely killer, but then that got pegged at the post for me as well. By before I go any further, I just want to say Flamethrower just made me think of my band manager, Kimmo. He is a legendary guitar player from Finland from this era from a band called Sarcophagus. And he actually had a guitar back in the day that had a flamethrower on the top of it. If anybody doesn't know, look him up, Kimmo, Sarcophagus. But so that song just made me think of him. And I had that modern a modern-esque style of British steel in it as well. So my favorite song, probably Rising from Ruin or Ruins. It's just an absolutely flawless song. Like, the production, the performance is absolutely blistering. And the way I described it to myself after a couple of minutes listening to it, I was like, this is pure bliss. And I think what really made that great was the way Guardians blended into it. It was like I've often heard songs over the years where there's a little bit and it moves into the next one. This was flawless. I've never heard a song, blend in so well. It was so smooth, and then the song just ripped into, the bass shines on this song, the guitars shine on this song, the vocals, the drums, the production, everything just bounces out. It's unbelievably epic and bitchin'. So that's my favorite.
You know what song has a really amazing chorus besides all of them? Well, actually, besides Playing Play. Well, to me. But the song that has a really amazing Spectre.
Oh, yeah.
The Spectre. Oh, it made me think of the only thing that came to my head was the James Bond movie Spectre. Spectre.
I mean, like, even Children of the Sun has an amazing big epic melody as well. Like, it's just it's littered with amazing fucking choruses, this one.
I kind of forgot what song it's off, but one of the lyrics on one of the songs is like, the devil came back from Georgia. And the devil came back from Georgia with his eyes set again, or whatever he says. And I'm thinking about it, that first part, the devil came back from Georgia. And I'm like, what? What? The devil came back from getting his ass kicked by a little kid. Like, that's not... Because if you listen to the song, the devil comes back from Georgia, he gets beaten by a flute player, by a kid. A kid with flute. So it's just like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, that's not a very good way to start the devil. The devil came back from Georgia. It's like, from a very bad loss. Like, he gave his golden flute to that kid. Like, I love that song. Devil came back from Georgia. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
All right, so do you have an album in mind for next week?
I do. Battering Ram by another Saxon. They are another band that, personify this British era of music, and that album is one of my faves. It's got some killer riffs, and it's one of their more recent albums as well. Like, I was thinking of like an old one. I was going through my records, and I have like some old Saxon records, and I was like, no, we'll go with Battering Ram. So
2015.
2015, yep. So that's a beautiful album.
Cool. No, should be good. Cool. All right. Andy Seep worked on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, cool. All right. At least we got an album. So yeah, back to our normal thing. So that's good. It's been it may not look it, but it was tough trying to figure out week after week. I'm like, fuck, how do I make sure I keep it going? So that's right. Shout out to fucking metal journalist Jordan Plum for having me on as well. Or for him having on. For an album that I know Terrence would have loved, the Porcupine Tree.
Yeah, man.
Huge fan.
Yes.
So he was happy about that.
Yeah.
Nah, that's good. So yeah, we're back to normal now. So hopefully there's no hopefully there's no The King is Back Part 3.
Yeah, anybody that doesn't know, I spent the whole time over Christmas 3 weeks in the hospital with our young fella Car, but all the support everybody gave us during that time, and you included, bro, it's absolutely incredible. We felt mad love, but we're now on the other side of it now, and we're back to normal. Everything's going well. The band is back on the road, and everything's fucking flying. So happy days. Bring on.
Oh yeah, before we go, and obviously, if this isn't something you want to share with greedy listeners, with the listeners, then just tell me on Facebook. But for the new album coming out, obviously you wouldn't have recorded it all yet. But for the new album, is it going to sound similar? Is it going to sound equally balanced like the EP you made, or is it going to sound more like Tales of Rim with the folk influences?
Yeah, I actually think it's going to go another direction again because I know it's going to be us. It's going to be us, like, but I feel like everything's going to get that bit beefier, a bit heavier, the more melody. So everything's just going to be just heightened that bit. And it's not been announced yet, but we're working with a lovely producer, a lovely man, and he is probably gonna tell me a lot of my crazy ideas are brutal, and he'll probably tell them to throw them out the door. So it'll be interesting to see. It's you know what, you know me, man. You know how I like being in control of this. This time, I can't actually tell you what it's gonna be like because I'm giving everybody, you know, free reign, so it's probably going to be the best thing ever, like, you know, like
definitely without your dictatorship in the land.
that's it, like, so I'm interested. I'm as interested to see what it turns out like as everyone else. I don't know what it's going to be. It's going to be good though.
Nice. Well, there it is, episode 54. This was
what? Wow.
Because Cannibal Corpse was 53. I think.
That's all right.
Well, I'll let you and your beast go, and we can do this next week.
See you later, guys.